You can copy the link to invite people to come on, but I just invited you straight through Google, so
Okay.
we're good. Plus, we've got 0 viewers, so we're okay. We're fine. We're ready to start recording.
Okay, very good. I will mute the video such that I'm not hearing myself on repeat. I will place you over here.
I'm wondering if there's a way for us to see who the viewers are. Can we see who's
It
viewing?
should come up.
I don't know. I do not know. Everybody can say, I don't know, can they say hi in the chat? I don't know if they can say hi in the chat.
David Hempel said hi in the chat.
Did he? I'm looking
to see. He said, hi, are we recording right now too?
Oh, nice. I didn't see that. Where did they see that? I'm not seeing it.
You can't see the
Sorry.
chat?
Nope. Sorry, anybody. I'm really new at this, and I can't see the chat.
All right. Well, let's start recording then, I guess.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. I'm recording in 3, 2, 1. Click. Okay, you're good.
Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I am Jake Bennett.
And welcome to episode 51 of the North Meets South web podcast.
Okay, so here's what I was amazed about. Last time when we were on the show, at the very end of our show, we made like a desperate plea. We said, hey, anybody who would be at all interested in donating to the cause of our hosting costs, we would love to hear from you. And I think the deal we said was, hey, anybody who's willing to make like a $500 donation will be like a sponsored, we'll have a sponsored like portion of the show. What am I even trying to say? We'll mention you on the show. We'll mention you on every episode in the year of 2019.
Yeah.
And so we actually had a pretty good response. So we've had a couple people who have donated and a few others who have like sponsored the show for the next while. So I mean, like at the end of it, we decided what we have like hosting paid for the next 3 years, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I was blown away because
I was too.
It was threw it in at the end of the show just as like literally a throwaway that it was almost jokingly that we were asking for this, and people actually responded very generously. So
yes, they did.
Yeah. It's given us some ideas on what we can do in the future in terms of sponsorship, in terms of some goodies that hopefully both of us will be at Laracon US to give away to people, and a few bits and pieces. But we've had other conversations on the back of that now, you and I, in terms of maybe using Patreon. I mean, we've had the donate link on our on northmeetsouth.audio for quite some time.
Yeah.
So if you want to just make like a once-off contribution, you can do that there. Obviously we're not requiring anyone to do anything. We'll continue to make this podcast whether you donate money to us or not. That's not what this is about. But the option is there if you want to contribute in some small way. And then we'll look at doing something exciting with Patreon maybe in the next couple of weeks. Maybe for the new year we'll get that ready and sort it out.
Yep. Oh, I finally found the chat, by the way, on our thing. So we'll also, because nobody can obviously see this, whatever, we are also doing a little chat thing or a live stream on Google Hangouts, YouTube Live. So I was like, hey, we can try this real quick. You had to go fix your computer because it was buggered. So we're trying that out. So there we go. So anyway, all right, on with the show. Oh, you know what? We should probably mention these people. So
we should.
Joe Lennon gave us a very generous donation, as did Andreas Hubenthal. I should probably make sure I know how to say that correctly, but Andreas is also, that's right. Andreas is also the man responsible for the donation of these lovely AirPods that I'm using right now. So Andreas has earned himself a nickname, my favorite German, because he is literally from Germany. And I will speak the little bit of German that I know, which is Guten Abend, which I believe is good day. Is it good day or good?
Guten Abend is afternoon, I think.
Okay.
Or evening.
Yeah.
No, Guten Nacht is good evening. Guten Abend is good afternoon, and Guten Tag is good day.
There we go. That's it. Guten Tag, Guten Abend. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So I used to work at a place where they would bring in German glass blowers to blow glass ornaments, and so that's where I learned all my German from. Not very much, but a little bit, just a touch. Yeah. So anyway. Okay. That was Andreas Humenthal, and then we also had a donation from JP Davy, which was awesome. JP is a super solid guy. He's from Illinois here, actually. He came down for the last Laracon online event. It was really cool to get to meet him. So thanks, JP. Appreciate that, man. And then we also had one other, which was Rasmus Nielsen. And so Rasmus is going to be sponsoring the show for the next year, as is Joe Lennon. And so what we're trying to figure out right now is we're trying to figure out how exactly we're going to do that. I think we're going to do like a read of some sort on the show for the people who have kind of donated for the year kind of thing. And then the other people who have kind of donated smaller amounts, whatever, we'll give them shout outs on each episode. But in any case, thank you everyone so much for doing that. And we'll quit talking about that now. So
really appreciate you all.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, I know you guys don't have Thanksgiving in Australia as such, or do you?
Not at all. No.
No.
We have nothing to be thankful for here. We leave that all till Christmas.
So I was going to ask how your Thanksgiving went, but you don't do that. So
I mean, it was fine. How was your Thanksgiving? You went and hung out with the in-laws?
Yes, we did. We went to Ohio, so that was really fun. We left early and beat the traffic, so that was great. We had Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my 8-year-old's birthday party all at the same time. So that was pretty fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild. It was a really good time though. He got crazy spoiled, man, because he had like Christmas presents and birthday presents and got to hang out with all his cousins. We went to see some movies. It was good times. So
nice. What'd you
get? Yeah, it was really fun. Saw the new Grinch movie.
Oh, yeah.
It was really super solid.
Nice.
Dude, I hate to admit this. No, I'm not gonna admit it.
Don't be a Grinch. Don't be a Grinch.
I'm not a Grinch. No, I'm the opposite of a Grinch. I'm the most, I don't know, movies do something to me. So like literally this is embarrassing, right? I teared up watching the new Grinch. There are certain points. It was so good. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was a really good movie.
I think it's a parent thing. I think it's having children.
Oh my word.
Does that, because since Eli's born, there are movies that I watch now and TV shows that I watch now, and it just happens. It comes in this way.
Oh, it's weird. With it. Dude, I'm so glad to hear I'm not alone in this. Like that there's something to it. Like it must be the child thing. Like I've actually always been a little bit like easy to get like emotional like that. I think I get it from my mom, but yeah, no, since having kids, it's like times 10, right? Times 10. It's weird. So, but no, it was super good. I really, really enjoyed it. So we'll definitely be buying that. I also got a Nintendo Switch.
Nice. You finally got on board. Nice.
Finally got one. Yep, finally got one. So I got Rocket League, which I really suck at right now, and Mario Kart, which is like my jam. I love Mario Kart. So it's like my favorite, game on any Nintendo platform is Mario Kart. It's so fun. So
yeah, Ree's been playing the new Pikachu. No, not Pikachu. The new Pokemon.
Yeah.
She got the Eevee editions. There's 2 editions. There's the Pikachu and there's the Eevee. She got the Eevee edition. And then within like the first 5 minutes, she caught a Pikachu. So she's got both the Pokemon now anyway, which works out well for her.
That's cool.
You can play 2-player, but if you're player 2, you kind of just tag along and can't really do anything constructive until battles. So you just like sit there and the camera follows player 1. So I like look down and I've looked up and she's disappeared. I'm like, I don't know where I am in relation to where you are right now. So that was a short-lived adventure, but she's been playing that when she's had time amongst looking after our terrorist child by herself largely for the last little while.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's why don't we do this? Here's what I'm going to say. We've talked about sponsorship stuff already. We've talked about kind of regular stuff. I think what we should do is because and here's why. It's 11:12. I'm leaving tomorrow morning to head to Arizona. And so if I don't get into the meat and potatoes of this thing pretty quick, I'm going to be up too late and then I'm going to be a grumpy man tomorrow.
Potatoes gonna potate.
What's that now?
Potatoes gonna potate.
Potatoes gonna potate. So, what have you been working on, my man? What have you been struggling with lately? I know that you've had some goofy test issues with validation that you were talking about. You've had some fun. Did you have like a server blow up on you or something like that? Or I know you were dealing with some server issues where you had one that was just really causing had some serious bottlenecks, right? Have you had a chance to deal with any of that?
Yeah, we've spun up a new server and started moving services over to it. We haven't moved our main application yet, but this has given us the opportunity to move to a more sort of modern, standardized Nginx, FPM, PHP 7.2 environment. So we're catching up
Nice.
to
Yeah, that's nice.
greatest PHP, just as the next version of PHP is due to come out in a little while here, next couple of weeks or so at the time of this recording. So yeah, that's all going pretty well. I had I had deployed our main application to that server in preparation to like do the DNS switch and all of that stuff. And I had set up the supervisor configuration for the Horizon workers, but I didn't think I had activated it, but it started at some point and started processing some jobs from the
From the
current
other
version.
one? Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we had some weird things happening um, over that little period of time. So
I've
that
had that
didn't
happen before.
last very long. We picked that up yesterday. I think it was probably just a few hours, but enough to cause some issues.
Quick quick
So
story on that. I
yep.
had one time I had a queue worker that was out there running for a production environment sort of thing, and then I was on my local and I was testing some stuff and couldn't figure out why I couldn't see any of the jobs that I was running. Like I was like, what's going on? Well, yeah, I was actually pushing them to production. And I was able to, like, if I ran like 10 at a time, I would be able to pick up a couple of them locally or whatever, but the rest of them were running on production.
Yeah. Yep.
And I realized that I had pulled down, I didn't have any like checks in place to make sure that I hadn't run a transaction previously on
Mhm.
this one like donation, because it was a donation thing. And so over the course of about 10 minutes, I took someone's very generous $5,000 donation and charged a $50,000 donation before it put a stop on their card.
Yikes.
And that was not a fun phone call.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
No.
all of a sudden, like, I hear from the other room, like, one of the other developers is like, "Hey, Jake." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you running some tests or something?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you doing like donation stuff?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Okay, can you stop doing that, please? Like, our Stripe account just flagged a bunch of transactions as like fraudulent." And I'm
Oh,
like, "Oh my gosh, how many did it run?" He's like, "It got 10 in before it stopped it, so we're at $50,000." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah, that was bad. But that's the
yeah.
same situation where you have like, oh, it's like picking up cues from like another spot. That's not good. Let's not do that. Yeah, no fun.
Luckily, we don't have any issues too badly like that. Nothing that's going from like test to production. Although we had some Slack notifications pepper our Slack account the other day. I didn't disable them. So Laravel actually gives you a nice little test helper called Without Notifications, I think.
Oh, really?
And so that way you can still fire and test your events
Sure,
that you're
sure.
notified to, but you don't actually send the notifications,
Yeah.
which is very helpful. So that way I didn't have to worry about refactoring the tests or doing anything around checking that the notifications were being sent and flagging events and things like that.
Yep. Okay. So speaking of this, so I'm going to give you a little bit of not really drama. It's just working through this. So, I have the developer that I work with, and we have different bents, if you will, right? So my bent is very much to say like, hey, you know what? Let's do everything the Laravel way,
Yep.
and that's fine, right? That's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm more like a framework dependence. I'm like, like I'm okay with like I've bought into it, right? I'm totally fine with Laravel. Use all the tools, use and abuse. Let's make it happen, right? And he's more like framework independence. Like he's kind of on the other side. So like if he has the option to like use a class that like Laravel provides or kind of make his own, like he's very much like, I'll kind of like make my own. And that's okay. Like that really is fine. Like it's not the end of the world. But like the other day where I would have used a job, he decided to make a class that had a constructor and then had an execute method.
Right.
Okay. Who cares? Right? Doesn't
Yep.
matter. Um, but that when you said without notifications, like that was like a perfect reminder of like, yes, this is why a lot of times this is why I love using the stuff that's built in, is because like the whole framework is just like it all works together. So like, for example, that job or that class was being dispatched from within a controller. no big deal. You can write your own class. That's fine. But now you don't have the ability to say expects a job and then pass the name of the class in and just then go test that job in isolation. Now, every time you hit that controller, you're actually going to execute that class, right?
Yeah.
So like I think those are the little things that I'm really like that's why I typically will go with hey, this is a solution that Laravel provides. If it's really, really close to like what I need, I'll just use that thing. There are some things that Laravel doesn't provide solutions for, maybe, but the vast majority of things, I'd say probably 85 to 90% of the things that I need, Laravel already has a solution for. And they also have great testing around those things, right? So I don't know. That's kind of like I'm trying to, at the moment when we were talking about it, I didn't really have a justification for why I felt like it should be a job.
Mm.
Because it didn't really matter. It wasn't needing to be queued. It was like executed immediately. But,
But the thing
there
is,
was
if
a
you use the job, it means that if you do later need to queue it, you just add the interface and then it's queued. So,
exactly. And I think,
and I mean, the argument is that you're coupling yourself to the framework, but realistically, how likely are you to leave one framework to just pick everything up and move to another framework or move to another environment? And I think that that's usually what it comes down to. Like I try in my team, I'm the same. Like we try and do things the Laravel way as much as possible. Mostly for two reasons. Number one, if you're picking up between projects, if they're all Laravel projects and they're all in the same app namespace and they're all following the framework conventions, then you don't have the cognitive overhead of having to think, where am I at? How
exactly.
how are we doing things in this application compared to the application I was working on this morning? Or whatever else. The second thing is that it makes it much easier to bring on another developer. If you
Correct.
say, I need someone with Laravel experience, and you drop them into a vanilla Laravel application where you're following a general set of conventions that the Laravel community as a whole has adopted and uses, then you can hire anyone. And in your case, you're looking to hire someone now, and you said on Twitter yesterday that you your company has agreed to look remotely. It means that you've got access instead of to just the handful of developers in normal or in the greater Chicago area, where you can look at someone that's on the West Coast, or you might want to stay closer to your own time zone, so you might look at someone nearer to you. But it means that any Laravel developer that knows Vue, that follows that's bought into the conventions and the ideas that most of us do tend to follow, it makes narrowing it down much easier.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. It's kind of like there's implicit knowledge that's imparted just by looking at the top of the class and seeing it. This extends a job. Like, oh, okay. Well, I already know like 50% of what that does. Like, I can look at it and see that it has a trait that says like serializes models. Oh, perfect. Oh, great. That's helpful to know. Like, I know that that's going to grab that off the database, and grab the most recent version of it when it actually needs to go get executed. I can add should queue on it. I know that I'm going to always call the handle method for sure. I know that like that's what's going to get called. um there's just this all this stuff that doesn't need to be explained, and that I don't necessarily have to write documentation for, because there's already a documentation out there for it, right? If you want to know what that is, just go look it up in Laravel documentation and you can learn all about it. So yeah, that's absolutely correct. And so I think the other thing is like I was watching that one movie. It's called I don't remember what it's called. It's like about Ray Kroc and like the McDonald's empire, whatever, right?
Oh, the
And there was
founder.
a yeah, the founder. Yeah, there was a very, very specific way in which they set up all their kitchens, right? That allowed them to be extremely efficient and allowed them to create a hamburger in some ridiculously short amount of time, right? And that was like the innovation that allowed them to kind of bypass all these other restaurants who couldn't do fast food, right? They were very meticulous about making sure that all the restaurants had the exact same system. So it allowed them to do things efficiently, and it also allowed people to move between restaurants and know exactly what it was going to look like. You have the same sort of setup like in the military. Like there's these camps that all kind of look the exact same. Like they're you go from one base to another base, they're going to have the same layout. They're going to have the same sort of items in the same places, so that it really reduces the amount of time that you need to familiarize yourself, because they all look the same. It's the exact same idea. If you create your own organization system for each application, it's just going to be a heck of a time trying to move between even your own applications. You're just going to have a different opinion on each one. Whereas if you just kind of stick to the Laravel way, it's going to, it's going to tie you to the framework, yes. But like, again, like you said, you're going to have to move everything, there's never going to be like I'll just switch frameworks and no big deal, right? You're always going to have to.
You're not going to go from Laravel to CodeIgniter to Symfony without some degree of pain and adopting, the intricacies of each of those environments if you move between them. So
yeah,
it just makes it easier, especially now. When I started, it was me and one other developer. Now it's me and 4 other developers. And if we're all writing our Laravel and our Vue and all of that kind of stuff in a similar way, it means all we need to do is pick up the specifics of each project. And then you can dive in and start helping out if you need to without having to worry about what decisions about design and even directory structures and things like that between apps, because they're all the same. So
yeah,
I think we're coming around on that, and we're getting closer and closer to a more complete Laravel setup than what we've got now, which is still kind of the Frankenstein with the legacy stuff being served through a Laravel front controller. So the newest of our developers actually is quite keen on going through all of the legacy stuff and rewriting it, which I've been happy to let him do because I was dreading the task, but he seems to be relishing.
Yeah, some
the
people like
job.
that.
So,
Some people like that. Yeah,
but
I'm
it's
not
good
that
because he
person,
can
but
work on that when he's got a bit of downtime. But if there's a
yeah,
specific task, that we need him to do for a business requirement, then he'll drop that and he'll go on work on that. I mean, the biggest issue with that is that we've got some stuff that's like in a state of being half rewritten, and some of the stuff that, like, if you have to go and revisit it for some business need, then you've got like you have to um you have to basically reconcile the two once you start merging those things back together, so you don't like blow away any of the functionality that you've created as a business need when you
yeah.
start merging the Laravel specific stuff back in there. But we're managing it pretty well, and yeah, that's been nice to just give one developer that task, and he just sits and
Kind of
works on
owns
that.
it. Yeah, yeah. Very cool. So what else? Okay, so I've been working on this side project for a while, getting close to launching it.
Yeah, very close
So
from what we've seen on Twitter.
yeah, so really like the portion that I'm trying to launch, and like I've tried to explain it to the stakeholders that I'm dealing with, like why it takes so long to get to this point. And really, I feel like what I'm creating right now, and Adam Wathan had to talk about this a couple of years ago, where he was talking about like he basically started with like, hey, what's the first test you should write? And the first test he wrote was like something like slice through all of the layers of the application, right? So it's like, what's the primary thing that like this application is going to be responsible for? And like, okay, let's go to that thing, right? So instead of like, hey, a user can register, it was more like, hey, a user can create a tweet, right? If you're creating Twitter kind of thing, like that's the primary thing you're going to do. And so with this application, it's like, hey, a user can apply for a trip, right? That is the thing. But everything is built around that. So like every step of that testing that you're creating is like you're literally building the entire application by accomplishing that one thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, in order to have an application, I have to have a trip. In order to have a trip, I have to have rooming options for that trip. I have to have ministry tracks for that trip. There's going to be multiple trips, and each trip needs to have their own. And then in order to have somebody who can apply for that trip, I have to have a user, but then I also have to have a participant that user manages. And then when they apply for that trip, they have to be able to make a payment. And then I need to have a ledger for the application. And then they need to be able to accept donations. And that also needs to affect the ledger. So like all of these domain pieces literally all have to be developed before I can have one person apply for one trip. So it's like the first thing that I'm delivering, which is like launching on December 1st. They're like, hey, we want people to be able to register December 1st for a trip. Sounds like, oh yeah, that seems pretty simple, right? Like that's all you need to do. Yes, that's all you need to do, but the entire application has to be built before you can do that. So it's like, even though for them, they're not going to see the interface, the user interface for all of those pieces right away, they're all built. So that's why it's like I've been really cranking on this thing to get this, because it's all there now. Now what I'll do is, like, on December 1st, I'm just going to launch like a MVP version of it that allows a user to register into the system and then apply for a trip and then make their first down payment. And then that's it. Like, that's what it will do on December 1st.
Yep.
It gets them that pre-registration, sort of like early bird registration. And then I'll start building up the UI around the rest of the domain pieces. So yeah, I've got
you're
the
using Nova for like the administration side of things. So that, like, do you anticipate that to be a pretty quick process, seeing as you've got
yeah.
all of that functionality there? Like, what
I
what are your stakeholders kind of expecting the turnaround then from the launch of the MVP on the 1st of December to when they can start seeing the registrations?
I told them January 15th.
Okay,
So like I gave
they've given
myself
themselves a bit of time,
yeah, exactly. I
especially with like
overestimated.
Christmas and New Year and all of that stuff.
Right, right. So I basically was like, okay, I would rather overestimate and deliver early than give myself a shorter
Yeah,
timeline. So
underpromise and over deliver.
yeah, and I told them when we first started the project, I was like, it's going to be really tight to get it out by December 1st. So I'm going to make it happen, but it's going to be a minimum sort of thing. And honestly, like, the thing is, like, I guarantee it's not like there's people like sitting there waiting at their computer like, okay, just wait for
Yeah.
registration to open. I can't wait. Like, no, I guarantee nobody's going to register on December 1st. Nobody cares that
No.
much.
I mean, December
Um,
1st is Saturday anyway, so
yeah,
who's
exactly. Like, so it doesn't, it's not
like,
going to make a difference. But anyway, yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a garbage ton of stuff.
yeah,
It's been cool.
just from what you've been sharing, on Telegram and what we've spoken about on the last episode of, or the last couple of episodes, I suppose, of the podcast, and what you've been
Hmm.
sharing on Twitter, the UI that you've put together is super, super polished.
Oh, thanks, man.
Like you've done, I mean, apart from those floating labels that I'm not sure, I think it's
I
aligned or
don't
something.
what do you mean floating labels? I'm not sure if I have floating labels.
So that
You
screenshot
did, you made the, you mentioned that, and I'm not sure what that meant. I wasn't positive what you meant by that.
So you've got like the label on the left, and then on the right
Hmm.
you had filling information.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Information was like top aligned, but the font was
Yes.
smaller. It looked like it
Yes.
was super scripted. But I don't know if having it baselined or if you had it like,
Mm.
I don't know, what approach looks better. So, and like you might not change anything. One thing I did notice though in the subsequent GIF that you posted was that when you process the payment and all of the form disappears, the billing
Yes.
information label remained there.
I did notice that as well. Yeah. And honestly, it's like I'm trying to it's because that is outside of the form. And so, like, I said, like, hey, like, form class, go ahead and set opacity to 0. And the reason I set opacity to 0 instead of like just removing it from the DOM is because, like, then the panel collapses, and then I have
Mhm.
to set like a static height on it, and it's like it wasn't good.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
I just made it invisible instead.
Did you just
And
use the baked-in view transitions for that?
So actually, yes, yes. Well, let me think about that. I've been using view transitions a lot in any spot that I can because it's so slick. It makes it
Yeah.
so simple. You just wrap anything you want in a transition component, say name equals fade, mode equals out in, and then you just chuck a couple different items in there and put VIF on them. And then,
Mhm.
as long as you're only showing one at a time, it just smoothly takes one out and puts the next one in, and
Yeah,
it's
without
beautiful. Super, super easy. Yeah. And so I do that for everything. Like, if I have a conditional input item that is only going to be available if they click a certain item, I put that in a transition thing and then just VIF it. And
Mhm.
as soon as I say, like, I'll say, like, if if we are booking your travel, right? So if booking travel was true or whatever,
Yeah.
then, and as soon as that happens, then it just transitions it in, and as soon as they click it off, it transitions it out. Oh, it's so sweet. Like, that stuff. You remember how difficult that crap used to
Yeah.
be with?
You used to have to do
Oh,
jQuery and you had to toggle, you had to do the slide toggle, and if you used the wrong
yeah.
thing, jump, especially if you had like if you were transitioning one out and one in, you had to
Yep.
slide one up and slide one down so that they
No, it just
yeah,
does that for you. It's
yeah,
amazing.
nice. And
So
it
yeah.
seems it was same as like the Laravel philosophy where it's trying to like make those decisions for you and be
Yep.
opinionated about it because this is what looks good, or this is what works well, or this is what works best in most cases. And so you can just use the defaults a lot of the time without having to reach to do anything manually. And if you want something that's slightly different, well, you can tap into the underlying functionality to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's also been a good experience for me with Vuex. So like that was something I was always really afraid of before. And David Hemphill was my guide through that. He gave me a lot of advice and helped me figure that out. And so that's been really cool. So kind of I know it's like a tool in my tool belt now. So like I definitely don't always use it. It's helpful when I need it. But now it's like one of those things that I can use if I have like a multi-step sort of form where I need to kind of manage the state at the more global level, but I still use component state like on a very regular basis. So that's been cool. I used X State, which is something that we've talked about before, but like I never really actually used. So I actually used it this time. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So like you can have like I love it because you can see all of the transitions like between states. So you have like here's this state and then here's the different places that I can go from here. Um, and you have that all kind of listed out in an object, and then it actually has a visualizer as well, so you can take that little state map that you've created and paste it into their visualizer, and it will show you a chart showing you all of the different states that you can get to and how you get there.
That's
And
kind of cool.
it's got a million tools that I haven't even used. So it's got like timer functions and stuff, so you can say it should be on this state for 10 seconds and then it will automatically transition to another state. um
Mm.
it's pretty legit, man. It's pretty
Like
legit.
all of these things that are just there to like abstract all that stuff. Like one thing that I came across the other day was a project called File Pond. Have you heard of this? It's like
File
a
Pond?
File Pond. Yeah, it's a JavaScript file upload utility.
Ooh, I think I have heard of it actually, now that you say that.
Yeah, so it's just written in vanilla JS, but it's got React and Vue and whatever else um, components that leverage it. But it handles all of that yucky stuff like dragging and dropping and previews, and it allows you to do some image optimization. So to actually do the optimization of images on the client side before uploading them, so that you know you're already getting uh, an optimized image as soon as it hits your server. So, you know, you minimize actually having to do any of that stuff. But the reason that I came across FilePond was because they've just released a new paid plugin called Doka or geez, it's bad that I don't know what it's called, but it's basically an in-browser image manipulation tool. So you can do
Okay.
crop
Oh, that's cool.
and you can flip images horizontally and on the axis
Yeah,
and
yeah.
do like all that kind of stuff in the browser.
Mhm.
So, if that's the kind of thing you do, but I'm really keen on just using FilePond because we were using a tool called Fine Uploader in our CRM, and I was doing a deployment last week, and everything was fine. All the tests had passed. I pushed the code into GitLab, and suddenly all the tests started failing, and it couldn't install dependencies. I thought,
Yeah,
that's a
sure.
bit strange, and I, went in there and like I couldn't see anything obvious. I thought, sometimes GitHub just doesn't respond to a thing. You just try it again, and it was consistently failing. So I ended up like blowing away my vendor directory locally and trying to do a composer install, and I started hitting the same issues. And I realized at that point that I've since spoken to the maintainer of this project. So don't take this as um I'm not taking shots at this person. They were well within their rights. They didn't quite understand because they were a predominantly JavaScript, and they didn't realize that when you remove something from packages, it like the packages doesn't maintain a copy of
Okay.
the
Yeah, yeah.
zip. So they'd marked it as abandoned in packages, and they had just removed the repository. Like they deleted the repository from GitHub because there was some critical in its default state. There was a critical security vulnerability, and because they weren't a PHP developer and they didn't have anyone that wanted to take on the maintenance, this the package just went away. So
Sure, yeah.
that broke some stuff. So we had to like and because it was gone, I couldn't fork it for our own reason. I had to like grab the stuff out of our local vendor directory and then create like another repository and do a composer like a git
Yeah.
repository or
Right. Yeah.
just so that we can because we're relying on it in our CRM.
Yes.
If you're looking for a file upload front end, then definitely check out FilePond. We'll put some links in the show notes for that and the other project once I remember what it's called.
Okay, dude, this FilePond looks incredible. I'm actually going to definitely use this because my little girl's up. Say hi. Say hi, everybody. This is you're saying hi to the world here, baby girl. Say hi, everybody who's watching.
Hi, everybody.
Say I'm Lyndon. And it's 11:30 and I'm up for no reason. Can you say that?
It's 11.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to say that. This FilePond looks really awesome because we have a project that I have an old project out there. So it's actually not an old project. It's a Laravel project. It's on 5.1. But our uploader that we were using was like jQuery Blue Imp is what it was called. It was like a multi-file uploader and it worked great for when we needed it. But I mean, it's just garbage now. And this thing looks freaking incredible. This FilePond looks exactly like what I need. And this would be the thing that would make migrating that from off of that server that it's on onto a new server way easier, because that uploader was the biggest holdover that was causing me issues. So this looks pretty incredible. I think I'm going to definitely use this.
And I mean, this has some basic manipulations as well. So it'll do some things in terms of upload. The one thing that it doesn't do that we kind of were after is chunk uploading. But I think that
it looks like it's on the roadmap, though.
It's the roadmap, so you know it'll happen when it happens. But because it does the optimization of the images on the client side, it's going to bring the image size down anyway. So we're not going to have to worry about that in the shorter term. But it's something that definitely we want to look at. You know, at least replacing this now like gone, unsupported. And we're not too worried about security because it's internal only. But you know, it's something that we want to replace. You know, as soon as possible, I suppose.
Yeah. I think I would need grid, or I think I would need chunk uploading as well, because like our clients are uploading some pretty big files.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like some 100 MB stuff. So I'd be interested to see. I don't really have any of the need for the different like masking or rotation flipping editor stuff. It's just PDFs and stuff that they're uploading. Really, that's all I would need.
Really do whatever you need. You know, just turn off the stuff you're not using. You don't have to include the image editor and the rotation and things like that. But
yeah,
it's super slick. It's super lightweight. Yeah,
I'm gonna use it. All right, this girl's gonna say goodnight. Say goodnight, everybody. You're gonna go to bed?
I'm not going to bed.
You're sick, baby. We're going.
I'm not going to bed.
We got to go early tomorrow on an airplane, so you need to head up and go to bed. Children, they're awesome. No, thanks for the heads up on this. This is pretty cool. So that reminds me of something that I just used today. So I was working on this side project, of course, and like one of the things I'm like down to the wire and I'm like, geez, like how am I going to handle avatars, right? Like these user avatars, like this is always a pain in the butt. Like how am I going to do this, right? And so I decided, sorry, I'm just reading the chat here. I just decided that I wasn't going to do avatars as like images. I was just going to do a colored background circle with like the letters of their name, right? So like JB, whatever. The other thing that I did as well is I made sure that like whenever I have a new user signing up, I'm not doing first name, last name anymore. I'm just doing name, but I'm requiring a full name. So like my regex that's there requires that they have like a name space last name. You know what I mean? So that I can make sure that I have both of them. And so then what it does is it generates this avatar. So I'm not sure if you've ever used this package before. It's called Laravel.
I've heard about it. I think we've spoken about it on the Laravel News podcast.
We have spoken on the podcast, the Laravel News podcast. So what you can do is you can basically say, all right, avatar, I want it to be a circle. I want it to be 80 by 80. I want it to be generated for this name. And you can just pass in a name and it will automatically pull off the initials that it needs. And then I want you to give me an SVG. just give me give me what it would look like as an SVG. Just spit it out for me. You know what I'm saying? Just the code to embed a SVG. And so it just like gives you the SVG code. I mean, it's incredible. So literally all I have to do now is I have a avatar or a get avatar attribute. And then I just say, what I do is I say cache remember for 24 hours. And then I say avatar, make a SVG. And then all I have to do to get the avatar on the page is I just say user avatar. And then I just do that in the raw HTML brackets, like bracket, exclamation point. Or if you're real IT nerd, bracket, bang, bang, right?
Yeah.
And then user avatar, and it just spits out the SVG for me in line right there, which is incredible. So I don't have to have any uploader or anything. I don't have to I don't even have to persist it to a file system. That's the beauty of it for me is like because that was what I was worried about. Is like, okay, when I create a new user, I'm going to have to check to see if the avatar already exists. And if it does exist, then I have to leave it alone. And if it doesn't, then I have to generate it and save it in the storage folder. And then I have to make sure that I symlink the storage folder up when I do my deployments and all that crap. And I'm like, this is so much easier.
Yeah.
Literally just have an attribute like one of those, a getter on the model, generate the SVG, and then dump it out into the page. It works beautifully.
Much easier. And it's nicer, I think. Like Gravatar is good, but most people don't use Gravatar. So you're just going to get the generic circle with the, the silhouette users. So Laravel is nicer because it gives you initials. It's a bit more personable. It's a bit, it's more specific to each individual. So it's a bit nicer. Definitely worth checking out if you want to have like default user avatars in your application and Gravatar is not suitable for your needs.
Yeah, and I think I really actually want to write a blog post up on this because now that I've done this, I mean, this makes so much sense for a lot of the places that I'm using this. I think the fact that you can render out, because I rendered out a JPEG and it looked like crap.
Yeah.
And you still had to do all the rounded stuff on it, and it had like pixels around the outside of it. It didn't work very well. And so being able to have this just was really nice. And I guess what the other thing you can do is like if you use a JPEG and use a base 64 image, you can just have it output a base 64 image. So it's basically the same thing, right? You just include it as the SRC, like the source of the image, instead of as embedding an SVG. SVG is going to be lighter weight for sure. But I think you could do the JPEG as well. Here's the trade-off. With the SVG, it doesn't scale. Right. So you have to know like the size that you need it at. So I really only have two sizes. I have a really tiny size in the top right corner where like it has their name and then they can click on it to like log out or whatever. And then I have another spot where it has like their large avatar. So I just generate two different SVG sizes and I pick which one I want based on the context. But if I did it as a JPEG, I could just generate the larger one, and then based on where it's at, it'll automatically scale, right? So you can do that with SVGs. It's a little more difficult, and you actually have to be able to put like a view box on the SVG. So I'd have to modify the library, which I wasn't willing to do.
No.
So that's the trade-off. I suppose if you wanted to do it as a 64-bit image, you could do the auto sizing. You could get that. So I want to write up a blog post on it because I think it's really quite useful.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway. Well, hey man, let's hear what else you got going on, and then I have got to go because I just got a message from the wife, and she's like, "Hey, you're waking everybody up." So
I think that was Lindy's fault, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. She's waking everybody up.
We'll wrap this up then. I had two things. Wilbur mentioned it in the chat a little while ago with Horizon. I had a real dickens of a time with Horizon yesterday. I was sending like the Horizon pause and terminate commands to my, in my application, so that when I deployed code, it would restart the worker to pick up the new code, because we're doing, zero downtime deploys now. So when the symlink changes, obviously you need to restart the workers to pick that up. And nothing, it wasn't working. It took me a little while to realize it, but sending it did nothing. And I don't have the luxury of using a Forge provision server, so everything's running as different users, obviously. And so I didn't want to give no password sudo privileges to everything. I didn't
Yeah.
want to say that like my deploy user can just willy-nilly run sudo without a password. So
Right.
figuring out how to lock that down so I could run the Artisan Horizon terminate as the user that was running Horizon was
Interesting.
fun. And then passing like environment variables in and things like that. But an issue that I had like a while ago, and it's long since solved. If you're using one Redis server for multiple applications, there is a Horizon underscore prefix environment variable that you can put into your environment file, and if you prefix it with like your application name or something that is unique to the application, it means that it will prefix all of the jobs so that you don't have like that way you can keep using the default queue for all of your apps, which means that 3 different apps can all have a queue called default. But because they're prefixed with like app 1, app 2, app 3, each app will only pick up its own jobs. You don't have to worry about like a worker getting to a job from a different application and then not knowing what to do with it. So that's super handy.
So do you have to pass that in when you're running the Horizon worker? Do you have
No.
to like when you're no, it just knows
It's
because
just
the
in your
application
Horizon config.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it reads it out of the configuration and handles that for you. So that makes things much easier.
So you can use one Redis server and have multiple apps pushing their Horizon queues to there.
One Redis server, like it's just Redis on its own server, and then we've got 4 or 5 or 6 different apps from different servers, all pushing their jobs onto the same Redis server and then pulling
You
them
just
off
have a
the same
prefix.
server.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was very helpful. Something to be mindful of. But I was like pulling my hair out trying to figure out why this stupid thing wasn't restarting. So
Yeah, I've
if
had
you
that
are
same problem. Oh
not
my word.
using Forge, then that is something to consider. The other thing that a few people have asked me about on Twitter and on the chat here now is how my recovery is going with my knee. And so I figured it'd be easy just to update here rather than replying to everyone separately. I went and saw the surgeon on Monday, and he said everything's fine. Like he didn't even really look at my knee because they test it while you're under general anesthetic. They like mash it around and bend it and twist it and make sure it's all solid. But he said, yeah, it's all fine. The only reason that I was waiting 2 weeks was basically because I had shaved. The way that he explained it to me is like, you get an orange, and an orange is orange on the outside, and then you've got the pith underneath. He said with my with the cartilage, I had basically shaved the orange bit off, like the rind off, and I was just left with that white pith. So because of the surgery I had to have to get that to recover, that's why I had to be off my feet. But he was happy for me to start the next phase of recovery. He said I can start driving again, start easing off my crutches. The physio was happy as well when I went and saw him the next day. It was my flexion in my knee and my extension in my knee have improved since I saw him 2 weeks ago. So I've got a bit of work to do just to get that to an acceptable level. Basically, I have to be able to straighten my leg again before we can start doing any full weight bearing and that kind of stuff. The atrophy in the quad and the
Isn't it crazy how fast that happens?
It's crazy, and it's like a toothpick compared to my other leg. And I'm like, I don't think my leg has ever been this thin before. So
they say that your legs atrophy the fastest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to take me a while to get back my strength for deadlifts and squats. But we'll probably start that in the new year. So at the moment, the focus is just on getting the extension, the full range of extension back. But I am now allowed to walk around the house without my crutches just to start getting the strength back. And and the physio says to me, just walk normally. Like just I haven't walked normally for about 2 months since I've done the injury.
Exactly.
So it's like, and because it's no longer painful, but it is like it
awkward,
doesn't feel
probably.
right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you instinctively go, oh, it doesn't go any further, and so you
Yes.
subconsciously stop yourself from doing that. So
Right. You
it's
don't
just a
want to
matter of-
re-injure it, right? That's the thing that's in
Yeah.
your head is you're like, oh, I'm afraid I'm
Yeah.
just gonna like mess it up again.
But the surgeon and the physio both assure me that, assuming I don't go out and start running or playing basketball in the next,
3 years.
3 months, whatever. Yeah. I mean, I'm never going to play again.
Forever.
Not socially. Like I might go out to a court and get some shots up, but I'm not going to play socially or politically or anything like that. As long as I don't do that, then it'll be fine. So it's just a tedious process, but it's nice to be able to like walk around and I can start helping Rhea out again a little bit. I mean, I'm still not in a position where I can carry Eli. But I can pick him up and like put him on his change table and things like that. That's no big deal, but I don't want to walk around with him just in case, like, for whatever reason it locks up or I turn too quickly and it buckles or whatever. So yeah, I mean, overall it's going well. It's going really well considering the injury and the surgery and that. So I'm really thankful for my surgeon and the physio that I've got is really good. He's an NBA fan, so we spent the session on Tuesday while he was pummeling my poor leg, talking about the NBA. He says to me, "Are you a Laker fan or are you a LeBron fan?" I'm like, "I've been a Laker fan since the early 2000s. Since I was old enough to,
Yeah, you're not one of these bandwagon guys that jumped on once LeBron came over. Yeah, sure. No.
But I'm happy he's here. So
yeah, exactly. I wish I knew more about that. I was watching a Michigan-Ohio State game, which is like a big rivalry over here, a big football game, which Michigan should have won, but they got absolutely destroyed. I'm from Michigan. My wife's from Ohio, so it was like I was in a house full of Ohio State fans and was like so confident that Michigan was going to win, and then they got crushed. It was bad. It was really bad.
This is going to Phoenix this week, and not to Ohio or Michigan.
What's that now? Say that again.
Phoenix and not Ohio.
Exactly. But they of course like do like the pregame where they're showing all the signs that people have made, you know what I mean, in the background behind the announcers. And one of the signs said, "Ohio sucks so bad, LeBron left twice." It's pretty funny.
That's good.
I was like, yeah, that was good. So I was disappointed that Michigan didn't win, but hey, there's always next year. They'll lose next year again, probably. But anyway. Well, hey, everybody, thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, you can find show notes for it at northmeetsouth.audio/51. I always love to hear feedback from everyone. And it was pretty cool doing this live chat today. So we might have to try that again in the near future. But if you have any other questions or comments, you can feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at Michael Dorinda, at Jacob Bennett, or at North South Audio. And of course, if you like this show, feel free to rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars. Thanks so much to our donors, Andrea Subenthal, JP Davey, Rasmus Nielsen, and Joe Lennon. We love you all. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Really, really appreciate it. And for everybody who joined us in the live chat today, that was really fun.
What about that sweet Spindrift?
Oh, yeah, Spindrift. So Spindrift said that they were going to donate 5 cases of Spindrift. All we have to do is put out a tweet this week, and then whoever retweets it will be entered in a chance to win a free case. So, yeah, so we'll put that tweet out there, and anybody who gets a chance to retweet that will be entered in the drawing. So Spindrift is a pretty freaking sweet stuff, man. So you should definitely get on that.
Nice one. We'll be sure to shout that out from the rooftops once we get this episode out.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.